All right, so you've probably done everything right. You've got a financial advisor you trust, a CPA who's a wizard with numbers, and a sharp attorney who does all your legal stuff. On paper, that sounds like a dream team. And you know what? They're all probably very good at what they do. But here's the problem that I see all the time in my advisory experience. Having smart people working in their own separate lanes can still lead to some less than desirable outcomes. It's what I call smart silos. So today I'm going to pull back the curtain on why that happens and what you might consider to make sure that your entire financial picture is actually working together. My name is Jaimin Garabedian. I'm the founder of Assurance Wealth Management, and I'm just here to show you why it's so important that that dream team that you put together actually works together. What happens when your advisor and your CPA are not on the same page? Let's start with your investment advisor. Well, their main job is to pursue the best returns that they can for you, and that makes sense. But the disconnect happens when those investment decisions are made in a vacuum without thinking about the tax consequences that they could actually cause. Your advisors might be chasing a hot stock or a fund that looks great on paper, but they may not be considering how it's going to affect your taxes or your tax bill down the road. So when your investment strategy and your tax strategy aren't talking to each other, a good return can quickly turn into an expensive, unnecessary tax mistake. Try remembering this. It's not about the return that you make, but rather it's about the return that you actually get to keep. So it's like a football team where a quarterback and a receiver, they have different playbooks. They're both very talented, but they're not going to connect or score any touchdowns or win any games if they aren't running the same plays. Each of them is an important asset to the team, but if they aren't all in the correct places at the correct time, it's a disaster waiting to happen. This is the same for your assets. Asset location doesn't just matter, it makes a huge difference. It's about putting the right kind of investments in the right kind of accounts. Let's think about your taxable account, for example. You may know this as a brokerage account or a non-qualified account. If you have high growth, tax inefficient assets in there, it will lead to increase and sometimes a very large tax bill that these types of investments could have grown more freely had they been in a tax-deferred or tax-free account. You want your heavy growth assets to be placed in tax-sheltered accounts. It sounds simple, but I see it being missed all the time. There's plenty of advisors out there that will put the exact same portfolio in an IRA that they will put in a taxable account. They shouldn't be that way. The assets do different things for different accounts. Now, for your CPA, most CPAs are fantastic at what they do, which is looking at the past and making sure that you pay the right amount of taxes on what's already happened. It's essentially historical reporting. But here's the catch. By the time your CPA gets to your documents in March or in April, the game's already over. The window for the most big, game-changing tax strategies, it's already closed. They're focused on accurately filling in the boxes. But proactive tax strategy isn't about reporting the past. It's about engineering the future. It's about making moves in June, September, and December to change what those boxes will actually look like. What is your other option? Well, let's look at the difference between proactive tax planning and reactive tax preparation. Reactive is your CPA telling you what you owe. Proactive is a team figuring out how you can owe less in the first place. The one and sometimes only tax strategy that I hear people get from their investment advisors or their CPAs even is the Roth conversion. But what about more advanced strategies? What about charitable planning, tax efficient business structuring, legacy planning, tax loss harvesting, or sometimes what I call the upgraded version of tax loss harvesting, which I talk about in another video. But what about ordinary income reduction strategies? These aren't things that you can decide in April. They require a coordinated team planning months or even years in advance. Planning requires different strategies at different times of the year. If it's the first quarter of the year, probably too late. You have limited options before your taxes are due. But if it's the second through the fourth quarter of the previous year, you can actually do some planning, implement some of these strategies. Let's talk about your attorney. You probably spent a good amount of money to get a will and a trust set up, and now you have a nice fancy binder sitting on a shelf somewhere. But an estate plan isn't a set it and forget it document. It's a living, breathing strategy. Your life changes. Assets change, laws change, your family situation changes. If that plan isn't updated, it becomes useless. Or worse, it can create the very problems you were trying to avoid in the first place. This is where the assumption gap tends to be very dangerous. Your advisor assumes that your CPA is handling the tax strategy. The CPA assumes that the advisor is on top of strategy and investments. And the attorney assumes that you're following a plan plan that they created 5 years ago. Spoiler alert, a lot of time, no one is actually driving the bus. Creating those documents are just the beginning. If you put together a trust, the document by itself doesn't do much for you. The real work is making sure that your assets are actually put into the trust, or what's called funding the trust. And that's where many plans fail. You could buy a new property, but if it's not titled correctly, it might not be covered by your trust. A change in estate tax law could make your current plan very efficient or non-existent. Your attorney needs to know about your financial assets from your advisor. Your CPA needs to understand the tax implications of your legal structures. Without someone leading the way, these conversations don't just happen. So look, the issue usually isn't that your advisors are bad or that they don't know what they're doing. The problem is a coordination gap between them. In my experience, the most successful families and business owners eventually realize they need a financial coach. They need a central strategist who's looking at the whole field and making sure that the investment team, the tax team, and the legal team are all running the same place. It's about moving from just hoping it all works and fits together to intentionally engineering a plan where it will. If you're a business owner with a lot of moving parts and this situation sounds at all familiar to you, I invite you to take the next steps, and that's clicking on the link in the description to book a call with me and my team, and we can explore if a coordinated approach might be beneficial and a good fit for you. Thanks for watching, and if you found this helpful, feel free to like it so that you can find it again, or subscribe so that you can see more of our videos on how to build and manage your wealth. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.